I'll never forget that time that I watched Speed Racer. The Japanese anime children's cartoon brought delight to many different minds of many different ages. And as for me, I'm forever young and then some. Admittedly, that caused my girlfriend to leave me, claiming I was the little boy that never grows up, quote unquote. But as far as I'm concerned, that just makes me Peter Pan without the tights. As for me, my name is Creighton Wang. I'm a native Tokian. I go to one of those seaside high schools Americans daydream about, which the girls all wear sailor suits and have giant eyes and small mouths. Check it out. Anyway, I work at a 7-Eleven. You may or may not have heard that 7-Eleven is Japanese owned since the early 90s. We get a lot of fancy foods that you don't have in America, like squid, octopus, meatballs, fancy feast. One day, while I was stocking the shelves, I opened a box with my box cutter and accidentally slit my wrist open. After nuking a towel and applying it to stop the bleeding, I checked out the inside of the box to satisfy my piquing curiosity. A VHS tape? And a VHS tape of Speed Racer, nevertheless. My heart skipped with joy as I perused the label. It was from America! A fancy sounding place. Pennsylvania Avenue. I bet the streets were paved with gold. I let my coworker heal me up like sucking blood out of a venomous snake. Okay, it was just a flesh tone bandage or two inclusive. Given that traffic was slow, I figured my buddy Yoshimoto could man the front register while I popped the tape into the VCR in the back room. I figured I'd make it up to him by narrating the plot to him afterward. Grabbed myself a rice flavored big gulp while I was at it. Here comes Speed Racer. He's a demon, he's a demon, he's a demon, he's a demon. The theme song was stuck in loop, like a weeaboo bragging about his Sailor Moon figurines and manga. I smacked the VCR, but that didn't help. Helped about as much as fixing a dude with a hentai addiction. I then tried tapping it with a bamboo stick, one of the prized cuisines of the 7-Eleven where I work. Again, it did not work. However, I did notice that the VCR was a little hot, so I gave sticking it in the freezer where we freeze dry the year old chicken wings and hot dogs and all that for a few minutes. Well, that did the trick. Was I suspicious? Yes. Yes, I was. The episode began with Speed Racer racing in the Daytona 500, a prized American race car event. Speed, you must win the race! A little boy with a yarmulke exclaimed. A straw and somehow neon sign flashed that Speed was in fifth place and not going to win the race at all. I was scared by this. Speed always wins the race. Not even two gulps from my big gulp could cool me down after that. Anyway, if you remember the chimpanzee monkey character, I'm not really sure why they came up with that one. Other than that, resorting to adding a monkey is something poor writers do for cheap comedic appeal. Anyway, that was when he stepped in. On second thought, that was really when he juggled in. An assortment of katanas dangling in the air, lopping around from one furry, nearly human evolved hand to another. And then he threw them all into the wheels of a Model T Ford. I froze, terrified, mesmerized. Could this have been an editorial on hard feelings from my native people about World War II? I mean, I guess it didn't matter now because I have a strong chauvinistic sense of honor. That and Speed was now in fourth place. Next up was 5 minutes of race cars going in circles and nothing interesting happening. Then the cars rewound, going backwards along the track as if rewinding on the tape for about 3.5 minutes. And I timed it on the microwave in the break room. Seriously, it was like watching paint dry. And as a carpenter of origami birdhouses, I should know. When the actual non filleristic content resumed, I let out a yelp. I did so for two reasons. One, I bit open my bandage and the blood hadn't stopped yet, so I paused and, shivering in horror from what I had just witnessed, opened up a plastic tin of Hello Kitty band aids and applying one, kissing the open wound like Mother used to do. But that wasn't the worst part of that moment. No. The worst part of that moment was Godzilla rising out of the ocean. This has been a fear of my people for decades and a living nightmare that I cannot put into words. Godzilla! Attack! Tokyo on fire! I didn't understand why that middle aged man character was obviously lip syncing, despite being a cartoon. American voice actors, maybe? But what he pointed at was unreal. Real life footage of the Mall of America, world famous vendor of pastries and carnival events. By gosh, by golly, it was on fire. Why did they mesh actual real life footage into an anime? Not a cartoon, but an anime. Where did they get this monstrosity from and how? Mercifully, the film finally broke back to the cartoon. It was Godzilla stomping on another American automobile, some sort of Chrysler, I think, again and again. Eventually, Godzilla got bored of the manslaughtering and sat on the crushed up remains of the car until a team of pit stop workers escorted him away from the track. In his defense, he looked a little bit guilty about the whole thing, but that didn't make anything better or bring anybody back to life. Speed was now in third place. Suddenly, an atomic bomb went off. There was no warning. I don't know why it happened or how, but all I can tell you is it did. And I went blind for several seconds, which scared the hell out of me because I eat carrots every day and I'm accustomed to having perfect eyesight. The nuclear carnage was concentrated on just one car, which was immediately vaporized with the remains sucked up into a singularity of a black hole that somehow situated itself amongst the puffy marshmallow clouds and rising sun, a proud symbol of my heritage and homeland. Speed was now in second place. Perhaps the most frightening thing about this whole experience was how close the race was. It was neck and neck, with both cars flying at breakneck speed, nevertheless. Speed was sweating, the other driver wearing a colonial American hat, powdered white wig, and clutching a flintlock musket with one hand and his wheel with the other, was also perspiring heavily. I couldn't help but let out some salt water myself with all this anxiety going on. I tucked some 7-Eleven paper towels and teepee into my armpits as I prepared to enjoy, if you can really use that word here, the final moments of the tape. They were the worst moments yet. The worst moments of all ever. Ever. Really. It isn't. It isn't that just one thing happened or even two. It was a combination of a few things. The eruption of Mount Fiji, like one of you Americans after a fast food Taco Bell dinner, Fuji, the American driver exploding into bones, blood, pancreas matter, chunks of intestinal tract, while the trunk of his vehicle tragically popped open, revealing the tied up corpse of Popeye the Sailor Man, clutching an unopened can of spinach that he just could not open in time to swallow sweet, sweet spinach leaves and gain his usual super strength, saving him from asphyxiating in the back of Johnny America's car? No. No. And then, above all, and this truly was my breaking point, was a 700-pound sumo wrestler emerging from the sea. "Death to America, pigs!" he exclaimed, smacking away at the American cars super fast like he Honda's fists in the Street Fighter II 16-bit Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo video game as the lava finally swooped down and left his final fatal bits carnaged, ashened. Listen, listen here. Listen, I simply could not take this anymore. I grabbed the VHS tape and ran the hell out of my store. Admittedly, it took a few minutes to get it out because my hands were covered in my splurted out wrist blood. The bandage didn't stick. And wasabi flavored jam, but I am a man of imperial honor and have the strength of many sun gods. Or perhaps not, but I was just very, very pissed. I ran so fast I tripped over a bicycle, the chosen vehicle of my people, when not taking the bus anyway. 6 blocks later, I made it to my family's Shinto temple, dropped however many yen I had in my kimono pocket, and let out a final fatal prayer for whatever yokai spirit had inhabited this tape to simply get out and leave it forever. Oh, great regret. Great regret because that's exactly how it's been. You see, a yokai is what you Americans now call a phantom or a ghost, and in this case it was a kappa, a tiny water dwelling sea creature that is a ridiculous mix of man, monkey face, turtle shell, and duck like hands and feet. I am now a kappa, a yokai, and I haunt the streets of Tokyo looking for new victims to possess with a need for speed and a hunger for an American fast food diet. If you ever feel the desire to move to Japan, travel, visit a 7-Eleven there, I ask you, please never open up a box with a VHS tape inside of it, because it could be a revenge curse from an anonymous American. Or it could be your ex girlfriend who's pissed that you refused to let her have her dog back. Either way,